Good morning, good evening, and wherever the sun may find you. My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium. Wanted to say a special shout out to everybody out there who is up this extra early on a day of people trying to find out what they're going to do next. So, that being the case, let's get on with the show. You can find us every Tuesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and we talk a little bit about what our favorite coffee is or what our favorite morning beverage is, and then we move on to an author concept from there. So this morning, wanted to talk a little bit more about method versus flavor in coffee. So when talking like different methods of how to brew coffee, I mean, there's so many different ways have been discussed over the years. Whoa, no, we don't want to do that. Nobody wants to see my awful desktop. So many different ways that coffee has been brewed over the years that, we really want to touch on a couple of them as we do these next few shows. What is going on? Wanted to talk about, for example, drip versus pour over versus French press versus kettle brewed. What are the differences and benefits of each? As far as like a pour over coffee, which is, I mean, everybody knows what a drip coffee is. So you get the big machine, you put the coffee in, you add the water, and the machine does everything for you. I mean, there's no mystery as far as that goes. So what's the difference between that and, say, a pour over? So pour over coffee is done in a carafe with its own drip tray, its own filter. You add the coffee. It's kind of a non-mechanical way to, I don't know what's going on here. It's kind of a non-mechanical way to make your coffee so that you're having more control over where the water hits the beans. In a mechanical coffee maker, the coffee has really no control over where it's going. It's a central drip. It just falls in the middle of the basket where all the coffee is, and then all that coffee, the water eventually fills the basket, and then it drains toward the middle, and you usually have almost like a reverse volcano of coffee. So the majority of that center of the grounds is being is where all the coffee is coming from, and that outside toward the outside of the basket isn't really getting as much love with the water. The difference in something like a pour over coffee maker is that you have this big carafe, or they come in different sizes. This one has its own like mesh basket, so you just drop the coffee in the center, right? And then I usually use a filter as well, just so that these are a little easier to clean. And then you throw that in there, put the coffee in, and then you're controlling where the water is dripped over this so that you get even amount of water per the coffee. Does it work? Some people say that it's got a much better flavor. Some people say it's a lot easier to use. Some people really enjoy the pour over experience because instead of just fire and forget, you are dropping that coffee in there, and that's all there is. There's no user experience with it. Instead, you're excuse me, you're instead of just a mechanical, very impersonal ability for you to make coffee, you actually have some interaction and get that one-on-one experience with your coffee, a deeper measure of control over the taste and how it's made. So that being the case, I have rambled far too long about one of these methods of brewing our favorite drink. So let's get on with the rest of the show. We have kind of like you when you have greater control of the kind of coffee you make. Sometimes when you're writing, you want a more dedicated control over um, how you're getting that done. Um, it's not always easy to sit down and just write or grab that outline that you've spent meticulous hours crafting and then transition that from the raw skeleton of something to the flesh and bones of your story. Sometimes it's really a lot of work to sit down and give your writing the dedication and kind of like that pour over coffee where you're trying to get that water to the maximum amount of the coffee grounds as possible so you can really hit that taste you're looking for. A couple of different ways I just wanted to talk about on the show this morning to talk up what kind of flavor your writing can take on when you dedicate yourself to getting those words down on the page. So one of the ways is Keystroke Medium's Keystroke which was started back in January. And the idea was to have a dedicated central page where you can get a word count per day and compare it with some of the other folks in the Keystroke Medium writing community. That page, we can put that up in the show notes a little bit later. And that page is, you go right on it, you fill in what you need to fill in, and then you start tracking your word counts every day. Every day you shoot for, I gotta get 1,000 words, or I gotta get 500 words. Even if you don't make it, you can kind of track your progress. Say, oh, I didn't get 1,000 words that day. I only got 200 because I was editing or I was doing this. I was chasing rolls of toilet paper. So Keystroke is an excellent way to get that daily set time in to get those words out. Another way is dedicated writing time. Scott Moon on the show has been very big about, I get up, I sit down, and I write on these days. On these days, it's my day off. I get up and I sit down and I write on these days at this particular time for this amount of time. And James McCormick coming on the show, late night keystroke, woo! So the idea is set that time every day where that's your writing time. Some guys, I get up, I walk the dog, I go to the gym, I have an hour to write. So getting that block in there, scripted, and saying, this is me, this is my time, this is the way to do it. Another thing that's really, really big is cutting down on distraction. So internet, phone, text messages, dogs, kids, groceries, work, all these things will come in and impede on your creative process. So having that keystroke Rimo where you can track your words or your dedicated writing time, and having that place where you can cut all that out and just kind of get those words down on the page. An excellent way to make sure that you get the flavor you want out of your writing. If you look at something like Josh Hayes, he said before on the show, when I go in to write, I have an internet blocker. shuts down the internet in my room and blah, blah. So he's got that ability to cut himself off for just a little while. So no incoming distractions, no, well, I just got to look at this one thing and then I'll get right back to writing. And then that one thing leads to one thing. Uh, James McCormick, sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. But getting that solid writing in without those distractions really helps bring out the flavor of your writing. Another trick is to break your writing into hard points. When you're doing something like word tracking, you can kind of lose sight of all those little other things that are essential for really solid, fun writing. So instead of getting those words down on the page, you might be editing. You might be answering emails related to your work. You might be doing research for that next book. You might be going through and listening, putting like a Ellen Campbell trick, taking your narrative and putting it on a device so it'll read it back to you, so you can get that timbre of the not timbre. You can get the cadence of the writing and see how it flows and whether or not there are extra words, missing words, misspelled words. So if you're breaking your writing into hard points, I need an hour for this 3 days a week. And then on top of my daily hour every day, I'm getting another hour in editing or listening or answering those company emails in regards to my writing. Breaking those up into hard points and getting solid pieces of writing in regards to where it's not infringing on those times when you need to be creative, because as a lot of people know, this is a business. You got to focus your time and make sure that all aspects of the business are being treated upon. That's about all the time that we have for today. Make sure that you are checking out Keystroke Mediums live every Monday night with Josh, Scott, and Chuck. And I don't know why I have to slow that down for some reason. If I say it too fast, I dribble over the words like too much water over the side of the coffee maker. So make sure to check out their show live on Monday night, where they talk about all aspects of writing. Of course, we have Coffee and Concepts every Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, unless, things get weird, in which case we make sure we do a slightly later show. We got the Writing Journey on Thursday nights with Lauren and Kayleen, where they discuss tips and tricks and tactics for authors looking to break into the writing scene. Storytelling with Josh Gayu, which is long form interviews of usually over an hour, where he gets into the meat and the matter of all things cool and good on writing. Thank you very much for sharing your morning with me. I really appreciate your time. Make sure to go out, get a good cup of coffee or whatever that drink is that wakes you up and inspires you to get some writing on the page. My name is Walt, and this has been Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium.